Hello everyone, Xavier here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over more of the 4K collection. We're going over the last few single title 4Ks from T to Z this video. So we only have like a few videos left before the end of the series, so very exciting. So without further ado, let's just get started. Starting off, we have Tenet. This was a polarizing film when it came out. This is Christopher Nolan's film that was released during the pandemic, came out in 2020, and it did okay when you considered the fact that there was a lot of restricted seats and the whole thing, watching movies during the pandemic. But of course, it was still a failure. A lot of people also didn't really like the movie much. They said it was hard to hear and it was a very messy movie. And also Nolan got really mad at Warner Bros. For even though there's no point that because he defended the release, but he got mad when Warner Bros. Released all their stuff in 2021, which that's a whole debate I don't want to throw my head in right now. But overall, considering the fact that I have in 4K, I really liked it. I understand the whole issue with the whole audio at the time of it was hard to hear in theaters. Then again, I think that's more of a Nolan thing. Like even Oppenheimer is a bit hard to hear at times. But I do really love the just the direction and the action and the visuals of the movie. Is the story amazing? No, but it is very intriguing. I do want to know what happens in the movie. It's not like I tap out. It is a very lengthy film, but I've seen longer, so that's Tenet for you. Looks great on 4K as well. But this one's controversial. That is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Now, if anyone knows about the 4K Blu-rays, this is considered to be the worst 4K, one of the worst 4Ks of all time, and that's because of the DNR used. This was a remastered version of the original film, of course, that I think came out in 2017 when they were doing a anniversary edition. So I actually remember watching it in 3D in theaters when they released that re-release. And I remember, I didn't notice anything different to me at the time, but obviously when you watch it on 4K, very noticeable difference. It looks like it was shot yesterday, even though it's clear it's just using DNR to clean up all the grain. A lot of people hate that, but personally, I don't care too much. It's still Terminator 2 at the end of the day. It's a really unique way to see it as Terminator 2. And it's a masterpiece. I don't know, I don't care how it looks. It's gonna look good. I can watch it on a Game Boy Advance and it'll still be a fantastic movie. So that's Terminator 2 for you. Yeah, and it took me a while to find that particular 4K Blu-ray because they decommissioned it because of how bad it was, but I managed to find it. Not for expensive, actually. It wasn't that expensive to get. Next up, we got Terminator Genisys. A lot of people hate this one. I like this. I know there's a lot of issues with it, but I think it's a fun movie. I think what they should have done though was that this movie, the story in this movie should have been a trilogy instead of this being the first of a trilogy. That was really the thing that killed the movie, personally. But I still think it's a pretty fun movie. I don't know. I think it's really fun. I love Arnold returning. I love the some of the action sequences and some of the things we get to see. Was it perfect? No. Could have been better? Sure. Some people wish it wasn't made, but honestly, it's better than Terminator 3. Terminator 3, I never liked the story for that one. But that said, Genisys I thought was pretty decent. More Arnold, Total Recall. Classic. I love this movie. Not much to say. Looks great on 4K. And Total Recall is just classic sci-fi movie that deserves more recognition. Fantastic special effects, direction, some themes and action. It's the whole package. Of course though, you have Terminator 2, that's a masterpiece. The sci-fi genre is always, you're gonna have a lot of classics in there. Next up, we got Toy Story, the original. Again, classic. I don't really need to explain much about the original Toy Story. It looks pretty good on 4K, even though it has aged in areas. I really liked the first one. The funny thing though is that I never really watched the first one as much as, the next one's coming out right now. Which I always find strange because I think it'll be vice versa. But Toy Story 2 is the one I remember watching a lot more as a kid. I think we owned the VHS where we watched that like 100 times. And I do think is the better film. Not, the first one's still also really good. But this is great. Like I love what they did as a sequel. Like how they evolved and everything. The animation looks better. Like it's surprisingly how they improved in a way with the sequel. And imagine that it was meant to just be a direct-to-video release, like if you don't know the development, and it was almost lost at one point. So there's that. Not much to say though about Toy Story 2. A lot of people love that. Up next is Trading Places. I love this movie. Don't know what this movie's about. It's about Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy. It's an early 80s comedy about these two guys of two different social classes being forced to replace one another. So the rich guy's now broke and the broke guy's now rich, and it's all about the stock market. It is not exactly the most easiest film to get back to. There is some questionable humor. There's some things that have aged, as well as the climax being very much all about the stock market. There's even like internet pages about what the heck the whole ending about the movie was, because it's not because it's a complicated movie. It's just the fact that it uses the stock market and not everyone can really understand what's going on. But regardless, I really love this movie. I'm glad that it came out in 4K very recently. Yeah, like honestly, I find it really rewatchable. I think this is a very charming movie, flaws and all. Yep, just a sec. All right, next up we got Tropic Thunder. Fantastic comedy. I love this movie. People should watch it more. Strange that Kino Lorber decided to distribute this, but you can't blame this. This is a great movie. I think it's also very hard to really, get people watching in today's mindset. There's a lot of, iffy jokes and all. It also comes with I don't know if they're both, no, they're not both 4K. It's a shame. I prefer the director's cut, but it's only on 4K. No, it's only on Blu-ray. The 4K has the theatrical cut, but it's not as much. There's not much difference. It's not like Dr. Sleep or anything. But Joe, this is a great movie. Like, Jack Black, Ben Stiller, Robert Downey Jr. being a movie that they don't know is not a movie. It's fantastic. Next up, we got Turning Red. I really like this one. This came out, of course, on Disney Plus. It was going to be in theaters, but then Disney got cold feet, canceled it. They did have some screenings in like Toronto, because obviously the film is set in Toronto, but it didn't really went outside much, and even then was very limited. Now that said, what do I feel about the movie? I think it was great. Like, it's one I really love it for a Pixar movie, because it feels very different from their usual category. And that's to say that Pixar movies, the more dramatic stuff, isn't bad. It's good. They're really good. The thing though is that I do like that it's a little different. It's not the typical Pixar formula, at least in terms of its tone. And it does have that 2000s energy and the whole, I know some people are like, what's the point of it being in Toronto if it doesn't use Toronto? I think it uses Toronto really well. Like, it's not like in your face about like, oh look hockey, oh look poutine, yum yum, or maple syrup. It's like everything is so subtle, and that's what makes it great. That's why I want more movies set in Canada to be. Not in your face advertising, but more in the subtle details that it makes sense for this film to be in Toronto. And honestly, I think this movie can only work in Toronto. Not only the director grew up there, but also like with the cast, the characters and their ethnicities and the whole dilemmas. It makes sense if it was in Toronto. Couldn't really work in another city. Like even like Vancouver or even like New York, it wouldn't really work as effectively with the whole how the whole film comes together, and also the fact that the reason why you make a big deal of the boy band coming to Toronto is that Toronto's not the Canada in general is usually skipped upon for music, and Toronto's probably the only city that gets recognition for concerts. All right, next one. This one's really dusty. Jeez. It's a shame because it's a very good movie. I'm just cleaning all this crud off. And that is Unbreakable. This is a masterpiece. Like, it's a fantastic M. Night Shyamalan movie. I think people should know what it is. It is like, what if a superhero exists in real life, but he doesn't know he's a superhero yet? Super grounded, super riveting. Bruce Willis, Samuel Jackson, they're fantastic. The twist, is such a great revelation and just a very dramatic moment. It's the James Newton Howard score is fantastic. It is it's on par with Sixth Sense, and if not even better. And I really do love the Unbreakable trilogy. I'm glad that Disney did distribute this on 4K. It looks really good. And the fact that Disney did do it, because if you don't know, Disney's not really well known for being the best when it comes to their backlog catalog for 4K. So I'm very glad that they did manage to get the entire trilogy of the Unbreakable trilogy out on 4K because it's all different studios, Universal and Disney. So that was something that no one would have expected, but they did anyway. All right, here comes a surprise one. Very cheap import to get. I got from my local store, and I'm glad I got it. And that is Uncut Gems on Criterion Collection. And yeah, I think this is a great movie. I would say that though I do like the ending being. What the fuck? Sorry, I did not mean to swear, but there was yeah, I need to really manage my. there was a spider nesting there. It died clearly because there's no food for it. But man, I got just a sec. I gotta wipe this. Just a sec here. Oh jeez. Oh my god. Sorry about that. Normally I would have stopped the video, but honestly, that is such a once in a while thing that honestly I gotta capture because I didn't expect that coming. Regardless, Uncut Gems. Yeah, great movie. I love the ending. I love the the ambiguity. It's like it's more of the complexities of the characters and what you're supposed to be feeling. I love the Weekend cameo. I love what's his name? Is it Kevin Durant as the basketball player? It's funny, but it's also very dramatic. It's Adam Sandler's best performance in my opinion. A very unique type of film. And it's satisfying. It's just a satisfying movie, even though there's things that you feel like, oh, what a piece of scum, Howard is. It's ridiculous. But it is I'm so glad that Criterion did. It's such a weird thing that Criterion did put it on their catalog, but it makes sense. It's only limited to the U.S. For the 4K Criterion. It's not easy to get outside of that, but it is a fantastic copy to get. I'm glad that Criterion did a 4K, and with the whole packaging, everything of it. Unlike say Shaft, which is just a basic one. Up next is Up. Not much to say. I think it's a great Pixar movie. I don't know. There's not much to say about this one. Everyone talks about the first 10 minutes, but the rest of the movie is also really good. So there's that. I think it's really good. Whew. Should have got some water while I was up there, but never mind. Next up, we got Venom. This is a fun movie. I know a lot of people they don't like this movie, but it's fun. It's an entertaining movie. I would say the first act is really slow and not very fun, but as soon as the symbiote gets involved, it picks up. It's a fun joy, right? And yeah, I think if Sony had more direction to franchise, it would have been more interesting. But it's just all over the place. But they're still fun movies. I have Morbius, so, but I'm not looking forward for Madam Web or the what's it called? Craven the Hunter. Yeah. Next up is Venom Let There Be Carnage. Yeah, Carnage. Let There Be Carnage. I think it's better than the first one. It's a faster pace. It goes straight into the plot. Could have been R-rated, sure. Could Carnage have been more utilized, sure. But it's still a fun, entertaining movie at the end of the day. And sometimes that's what you need. You don't need oh my god, this Oscar, bait type of movie. It's Venom versus Carnage. It's kind of like Godzilla versus Kong. What you see is what you get, and it's fun for that nature. Up next is V for Vendetta. This is a great movie. Very much relevant now, in particularly in the last few years during the pandemic era. Surprising how relevant the themes are. Fantastic adaptation. I know some people have said that the graphic novel is different and that the movie changed a few things, but I think this is great. Great political, superhero action thriller. Like, it's a very unique movie. And it's a bit hard to describe. I don't really describe the plot too much because honestly, it's a bit hard to, make it in a simple premise. But because it is it goes all over the place, but it is effective. Like, it's a very effective movie, for what it is. Next up, we have Wayne's World. I don't want to do Wayne's World, excellent. But yeah, this is a fun comedy. It's a shame they didn't have Wayne's World 2 packaged in. Hopefully that will come out one day. As for the first film itself, it is just, the story is kind of non-existent. It's just a bunch of skits tied together. There is, of course, a plot where, these characters are being forced to get into TV, but they don't really like the idea. And then you have the girlfriend and the scummy, sleazy, executive who wants to sleep with her. It is very 90s plot, but it's still fun. Mike Myers and I'm forgetting his name. It's Dana Carvey, I think. They're great. They're a great duo. It's kind of a shame that they don't really they're kind of irrelevant now. They haven't done much as of late, which I get it. Sometimes different decades not do well for certain comedians, but I do think this is a very, very good comedy to this day. Still has some very fun moments that I kind of wish more films do lately, but. That's Wayne's World. Next up, Whiplash. I don't have much to say. Fantastic movie. It's, I watched it years after it came out, recommended by a bunch of YouTubers and stuff, and I understand why. I think everyone knows about this movie. It's a fantastic movie. Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons are fantastic. Damien Chazelle, I think, kind of peaked, and that was the unfortunate thing. That this movie is so good, I think it now is a curse to him because I don't think any movie can really rival it as much as he tries. So it's a bit unfortunate on his end, but at least he made a fantastic, particularly a modern masterpiece. In fact, I think it is considered a masterpiece. Up next is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Amazing movie. I mentioned in my Disney's Army of Darkness video that it's this movie that kind of inspired me to do that, to write that type of script, which is crossover stuff. And even though the funny thing is that the crossover stuff here is not in your face, it's more it's more. I mean, it is it is sort of actually it is sort of in your face, but it's not overtaking the plot is what I mean. It's not like the movie's all about the crossover. It just happens to have a little bit of crossover elements. But the movie could have removed all its crossovers and it still would have been a very fun, entertaining movie. And the hand-drawn animation is great. The late Bob Hoskins is fantastic. It's edgy, but it's also family friendly. It's of course everyone wants to talk about Jessica Rabbit and everything. It's I don't have much to say that a lot of people haven't said about this movie. It is amazing. It is a shame that we kind of haven't got a movie on that same caliber. Not even just a sequel, but it's a movie that kind of blends those elements pitch perfect like that. Then again, maybe that's what's good about it. It's just a one-of-a-kind movie. So there's that. Up next is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I kind of wish that the Johnny Depp film was on 4K, but maybe one day. As for this movie, it's still pretty good. I'm on the camp that I prefer the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory film more than Willy Wonka. I just kind of don't like some of the how would you say? I'm not the fan of the more musical aspect of this movie. There are musical aspects in the other movie, but it's only for the Oompa Loompas, not for the other things. It's a bit slower paced than I personally feel. It kind of drags, in my opinion. It's still there's still good stuff, and it is still there's some imagination and everything. But I also feel that what's his name, Gene Wilder. Like some people think he's the best Willy Wonka that we have, but honestly, I personally don't see him as that character. It's kind of a weird. It was always a weird choice to have him in the movie because I think he was a comedian, but he played his character very serious, which is unique, but it also doesn't fit the character. I've read the book. I remember reading the book as a kid. That's not Willy Wonka. So, yeah. Other than that, like it's still a good movie, but it is definitely not like a perfect adaptation. I prefer Giant Chocolate Factory as much as some people don't like that one. Next up is Wonder Woman. Pretty solid movie. Probably one of the better DC EU films. A lot of people didn't like the Ares battle at the end. I don't think it was the. I like the battle. It's just I don't think Ares should have been the twist villain. He should have been saved for a different movie. Is my issue. But other than that, it is still a pretty solid movie. Like it's not. I wouldn't say it's one of the best superhero films out there, but it's definitely a pretty good one. Like it's and like it's like a little bit too on the safer side for me to say this is one of the best films. But then we have Wonder Woman 1984. Everyone hates this movie. So there are a few people that defend this movie. I remember Oliver Harper really likes this movie for some reason, but there's a reason why. And it's my defense for it. I won't say this is an amazing movie, but the issues that this movie is more of what it is. It is an 80s throwback movie. Patty Jenkins really wanted to do a 80s movie, like a modern movie that is like an 80s movie in nature. So like, this movie, instead of trying to go for bigger bombastic ideas that, you need lots of CGI for and more stuff that, modern movies would go for, it's basically let's do a big budget 80s superhero movie. And that's unique because the idea is that if you could technically have made this movie in the 80s. That's what I think that we're trying to go for. Where with the huge budget and everything, it was possible to make a movie like this in the 80s with the ideas and the creative decisions. Here's the issue, though. That is not what a lot of modern audiences want in their movie. Even Sam Raimi, who copies the Superman trilogy into the Spider-Man trilogy, he didn't make Spider-Man 2 an 80s style movie that is super goofy all the time. That's the issue. I commend the fact that Patty Jenkins was bold for that choice, and I do like some stuff in the movie and some of the performances and sequences, but it is definitely it's a movie that is going to be flawed from that type of nature, where you're going to, like, it's a very niche movie because you're aiming for people who love 80s type of throwbacks, but that for a superhero movie, you can't do that like that. You have to be more subtle and modern. Like, I'm sorry, no one wants to watch a movie that has not as much action or characters that are not taken super note like the comics or anything, or just an 80s movie in general when they see a modern movie. Yes, it's called 1984, but that's the setting. But it's like Stranger Things, for example, is not an 80s-esque movie, like show. It's set in the 80s. It has 80s throwbacks, but it's not like, wow, they're making the. It's like as if it's in the 80s. Like, and the characters are horribly written and cliche. So there's that. Next up is Wreck-It Ralph. I have this weird French bilingual version, so the French language is always first for this, but regardless, I can always put English on. Really good movie. I wouldn't say it's amazing. Like, some people think it's like one of the best Disney films. I wouldn't say that. Some people also say this is like the Roger Rabbit of animated films, which is, well, for video game movies, that is. I wouldn't say that. Personally, I was a bit disappointed when I was a kid because I thought, oh my god, all these video game characters are going to do something big, like in the climax, they're going to go through different arcade cabinets where the villain and the hero are going to fight in different video games. That's not what happens. I would say it's a bit like a little lesser effect than Roger Rabbit, because with Roger Rabbit, at least, it is more of the gimmick of it's live action, hand drawn, whereas this is, you can remove the whole thing of them being a video game and it kind of would sort of work in a way. But you know what? Whatever. This movie wasn't really meant to be a video game crossover movie as much as they really pushed the marketing. The original poster of all the video game, it's so ridiculous. And also the fact we never got Mario in the sequel, which I don't have the sequel. If you can understand why, you know why. But in general, this is a good movie. Looks nice in 4K and everything. And in general, like, It has some nice stuff. It's just I kind of wish it did deliver on more of the whole video game aspects. Almost done. Next up, we got one I have to defend. X-Men Dark Phoenix. I think this is decent. I know when Marvel bought Fox, it was basically no one gave a crap about the X-Men films anymore. And this film got a lot of production issues, similar to New Mutants, but, it was complicated. It's weird, people would defend Justice League because of the production, troubles and director's cuts and everything. This is like, oh, we're not going to defend this movie, though, even though it had the same issues, where they were initially trying to make Dark Phoenix a 2-part movie, but then the studio was like, no, make it one movie. And then Disney came in. They're like, no, we're not going to make, more movies. We're going to just make this the final movie, reshoot it to make it more of a conclusion. And there you go. And for how messy the production was and for how untapped potential that that series had, this is a solid movie. I think they did an okay job for doing a part 1 of the Phoenix Saga. Not the Phoenix Saga, just the part 1, because that's the thing. If you knew the production issue, it was meant to be the first part of that entire saga story. And it did a good setup. I love the third act. I think everyone can agree the third act has some great action, even though it is, just a bunch of aliens on a train. It's well done. Like, it's surprisingly like one of the more exciting action sequences in a superhero movie. The entire cast is still great. What's his name? Simon Kinberg's first film, kind of decent. Like, it wasn't the worst directing I've seen from a first-time director. It's a shame that his directing after that hasn't really got better, but I think this is a pretty solid directorial debut. Overall, I think it's a solid conclusion, even though it was not meant to be a conclusion. Good looking 4K. The commentary sucks. The commentary is very, how do you say, cutthroat, where they do not want to mention anything about the production issue because, Disney or Fox will sue them or something. I don't know. But in general, I think this is a decent movie, as much as people say it's one of the worst films out there. But I think that's just because people just, oh my god, X-Men should go into the MCU. So, whatever. Alright, the last movie for today. I feel bad for this movie because it always gets squashed. Not because it's a bad movie, just because it always gets squashed in my movie pile. But here it is, Zootopia. Now, there's obviously one reason why I got this movie. No, I don't want to make that joke. I'll get yeah. But even then, I think this is a great movie. I do have my issues with the third act. I think that the ending was a bit too sappy. I think there should have been a bit more of a somberness of like, okay, yeah, you can't just cure racism, you can't cure xenophobia, like you can't just, it's like, oh my god, everything's okay now. No, that's my issue of that third act. I mean, I'm gonna see if the twist villain is even that bad. It was just the fact that it ends way too happy for such a serious topic that is xenophobia. But I do love the characters, love the animation. There's a reason why like it made $1 billion. There's a reason why they're trying to do a sequel, which I don't think they need to do a sequel. Yeah, like there's not much to say other than just there's a reason why people love these characters, more than one reason. But yeah, that's about it. Still a good movie though. Like all jokes aside, all the internet infamy beside, it's still a very well done movie. And that's all of the single titles. So we only have the movie collections and some steelbooks and stuff like that, and that's it. We're like 3 more videos before we do some streams about calculating all the titles and their value, and for the final price tag information about how much the collection's worth. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you guys next time. So have a good day.